Hello there. Thank you very much for joining us on Diaspora Connect, where we champion excellence by spotlighting the resilience of Nigerian citizens who are breaking barriers and making a difference across the world. On the show, we explore identity, origin, and diverse journeys of Nigerians in the diaspora. I am Abosedi Adeni. Let's get the show started with Diaspora News. A Nigerian diaspora group has launched an initiative to revive a long-neglected community hospital in Edo State. The Oraipe Association, a socio-cultural organization of Owa indigenes living abroad, has committed funds and support to rehabilitate the ailing General Hospital in Sabongida, Owa West local government area. The group says the intervention, starting with an initial contribution of 10 million naira, aims to restore and modernize the facility, which has struggled to provide quality health care due to years of neglect and underinvestment. Officials and community leaders have welcomed the move, saying the hospital's revival would improve access to medical services for residents and reduce the need to travel long distances for care. The Oraipe Association is also urging government authorities, public officials, community leaders, and other well-meaning individuals, particularly sons and daughters of Ora at home and abroad, to join in supporting the broader rehabilitation effort. It's time now to connect you to your roots. So let's check out these fun facts on our Did You Know segment. Some really amazing facts there. Now let's get to the discussion for the day. Today on the program, we are discussing how diaspora professionals can build global tech careers and still give back. And my guest is Joseph Abuo. Joseph Abuo is a US-based IT professional, data and business intelligence consultant, and technology educator whose journey spans banking, energy services, and advanced analytics. Born and raised in Zaria, Nigeria, he holds a national diploma in banking and finance from the Lagos State Polytechnic and began his career in Nigerian banking with Union Bank and First Bank of Nigeria, where his interest in technology and data analytics emerged. In 2013, he relocated to Dallas, Texas, and transitioned into the IT field after early roles in logistics and energy services, including with Halliburton. Mr. Abuo later built a career in information technology, business intelligence, and data-driven decision-making, working with multiple organizations to translate data into strategic insight. In 2021, he became a Microsoft Certified Trainer, MCT, and in 2022, founded Congress LLC, a consulting and training company with operations in both the United States and Nigeria, delivering mentorship and capacity building programs for aspiring tech professionals. He earned an MBA from Texas A&M University in 2024 and is currently pursuing a PhD in engineering leadership with a focus on artificial intelligence and data. With multiple professional IT certifications, Mr. Abuo remains committed to technology education, innovation, and diaspora-led empowerment. Mr. Abuo, good to have you join us on Diaspora Connect.
Hi, Abuo. Good morning from here.
Yeah, I see you've had quite, an experience from Nigeria overseas. And I think I'm particularly interested in the fact that you began with a national diploma from a polytechnic, and now you're pursuing a PhD. Tell me about the move, because here we know that there still exists somewhat that dichotomy between bachelor's and the diploma program.
Absolutely. More than happy to talk about that. So yeah, as you mentioned correctly, back in Africa, in Nigeria precisely, there's this huge, discrimination between HND and bachelor's degree, and I experienced that firsthand. For example, one of the experiences that really got me really, frustrated with that system is the fact that whenever you apply for a job with a HND, you are not considered a graduate per se, even though they don't say it directly into your face. I mean, the reaction or you're not just going to be shortlisted, pretty much. So I experienced that, and I landed a job like in the banking industry, right, just as a transaction officer, like a contractor, because that's what a national diploma could have, gotten for me at that time. So that experience was really bad in the Nigerian perspective. Like you just have to struggle, like you are not a graduate, And then I moved over to the United States, and through some friends, I found that you can actually evaluate your foreign, credentials, like the degrees you got in Nigeria. You can actually bring it here and evaluate it, and what that means is they're going to convert it to the United States equivalent. So I did. I took a stab at that, tried mine, and I sent it to West, a company called West, World Education Services. That's what it's called. Send it to them. After a while, it was evaluated. My transcript was evaluated, and I got a bachelor's for it. For my higher national diploma, it was converted to a bachelor's degree and a first-class upper. I was like really baffled by that. So from then on, I was able to like do what others could do, with my degree, right? So I applied and got admitted into a school to study my, do my MBA, Texas A&M, like you read from the bio. And after that, it's just, all the way up from there, Yeah. Currently, I'm in school studying for my PhD, with the same HND that was seen as a kind of a non-graduate degree back home.
So I think that should really just be an inspiration to someone out there who feels worried about the fact that they are in a polytechnic or college of education, and they think that, hey, I must get that bachelor's, or no, if I don't do that, I haven't been to a tertiary institution. Thank you very much for sharing that story with us. And then you have moved on from doing banking in Nigeria to over there. At some point you were into logistics, and now you are a full-blooded IT, data, and business intelligence executive. Tell me about that move. What inspired that, and what is the passion fueling it?
Absolutely. So yeah, my journey has been what I'll call kind of a graceful one, pretty much. Determination contributed to it, but there's a saying that once you're prepared, opportunities, you see opportunities, right, when you're prepared. So what really happened to me is after my high school days back in Nigeria, I got there's this interest for tech, but being someone from a background that is not really exposed, like I didn't come from a wealthy background, being from back from a background that the parents, we could not even afford a good TV set in the house, not to talk about computers. So I had this craving for computing, and then the whole thing about the internet was very popular then, sometime early in the early 2000s, So I started going to the computer village on my own, just trying to see what I could learn there, right? Got enlisted into one of the roadside schools to do computer engineering. Back then, like a certificate, 2-month certificate program, that is where it started pretty much. So that interest has always been there, and then later along the way, I was able to get an old computer that I was able to fix by myself, and I started using. So that is the interest, right? That's how it started. But fast forward to how I got into the banking industry. So I went to the Polytechnic, of course, because hey, starting up, I didn't get enough, sufficient, available resource to be able to study, pursue my passion, which is tech, right? So I just got whatever was available, and I got admitted into Lagos State Polytechnic to do banking and finance, even though that's not like the really, really deep craving, but that's what was available at that time. So I got into school, did the banking, and then fast forward after my banking days, after the national diploma, I got into Union Bank. So when I got into Union Bank, I mean, as a transaction officer, like a book teller, just a cashier, what I did then was while doing that job, I was always going back to the back office, like to the data room, just because of my interest. Whenever anything fails, maybe the network is down, I'll be the first to jump into that room to go see if I could assist, the technicians in there, and of course, they give me that open hand to learn. So that kind of started, increasing my interest and exposing me to the world of tech itself. And then moved to First Bank, I did exact same thing. I got a job as a transaction officer, but spending most of the time in the back office, like in the data room, trying to make sure that the systems are running as expected. If anybody's computer goes down, I'll be the first to jump and say, hey, let me try to help, And then through fate, I found myself in the United States. And as soon as I got into the United States, I mean, the struggle started first, right? Which is, it's very normal, right? When you relocate to a different country, we experience that a lot, right? So got here, I just couldn't get back into the banking industry. As a matter of fact, when I was coming to the United States, I didn't have it in mind to work in the banking industry because I was done for it. Because one of the experiences I had in Nigeria was having someone that studied zoology as your manager and you did banking and finance. And then whenever you talk about your HND, they're like, well, that's not considered a degree. It's not accepted and all that. So with that kind of experience, that mindset followed me down to the United States. So I didn't just want to go into the banking industry at all. So at that point, it was struggle, right? So I started with, trying to get any job. And then when I found myself in the oil and gas industry as an administrative specialist, that is where it was started, right? I started showing more interest in SQL, which is structured query language. I started doing some programming part of computing. And that's how the journey, got to this point.
Indeed. And it's been, eventually a beautiful continuation, but I'm sure that beginning was quite rough. So tell me about settling in. How was it, especially as a man from Africa? There's just a way that everyone who is dark complexion is Africa is actually taken as it's a country. If you say, for instance, you're Nigerian, like, well, Africa, that's just what everyone wants to talk about. So tell me about how it was adapting to the system, the people receiving you, perception, and stories around that.
Wow. Yeah, I must say that's a very big one right there. It got me a little bit emotional, Now, considering someone like me that didn't have a lot of, good start in life in terms of, wasn't born with a silver spoon, I've not been exposed to international journeys. Like I've never traveled to any country before prior to when I left Nigeria. So it was a huge shock for me, getting over here, with the kind of mindset that, you're coming to a country where everything just like it's the land flows with milk and honey, like they used to tell us back then, like there are money growing on trees, So got here, it was a rude shock to realize that it's the same thing, it's flesh and blood that live here, people, and then the biggest part was the language. I mean, I live in Texas. It's a bilingual state. Spanish is being spoken here as well as English, So the mindset that I had, kind of the movies I used to watch about the United States, looking at New York, and seeing people speaking, this American kind of slangs, So I was expecting everybody to speak in that kind of language when I got here. But I realized quickly that it wasn't so. As a matter of fact, I found some people that could only speak Spanish,
Wow.
So I mean, so you speak to people, you talk, and, you get this response. People say, hey, you've got an accent. It was very embarrassing, right? So you have to try to speak in the way that they would understand. And sometimes you ask yourself, why is it that I understand them, but they can't understand me? And you struggle. Like it was a huge shock for me, to start. Well, the way to go then for me was just to start learning the ropes from scratch. And one of the biggest shock too for me, about it because you asked this question, is when the plane landed in the airport when I came. The first thing I saw, I don't know if it was just God trying to show me something, right? When I peeped through the window, I saw somebody pushing a truck actually in the airport. And I wasn't expecting that at all. So I'm like, in the United States, someone is pushing the truck. I mean, it was really unbelievable, you know. But yeah, I mean, like every other diaspora and African that's
Yeah.
is living abroad, will have to find a way around it and just survive.
Indeed. And I think I can say that you've perhaps moved beyond that point of survival to a point of significance, because now you are sitting as CEO of Congress LLC. And I think that's incredible. So tell me about that move. Whatever it was, I just told you that, hey, Joseph, you can do this. And it just launched ahead. You went into it, and now you're offering services across the world. Tell me that.
Amazing. So this is also a very interesting question. Thanks, Abosidi, for this question, because I'm trying to be as nice as possible about Nigeria and Africa, right? So the first thing that really sparked that interest in me, that really drove the interest to do whatever I want to do here, is the fact that the opportunities are here. That's number one. The number two reason is, there's no nepotism, or you have to know somebody to be able to do what you want to do here. I found out how to really, really quickly. Prior to the time I started working for the oil and gas company, I noticed that you can actually apply for a job just without knowing anybody, and you will be invited for an interview. You'll be given the opportunity to be interviewed. So the moment I realized that, I found out that, well, I'm in a place now that's quite different from where I'm coming from, where whatever you want to be, you can actually be. So at that point, I decided to get back to my original love, which is tech, right? So I started, trying to get certifications in the tech space. And when I started working in the oil and gas field, I started asking questions. And I noticed that the people here, they make it open. Once you have that eagerness to learn, they give you the opportunity to learn. Like in the office, if you have a training that you want to do and you just suggest it to your manager, they're going to look at you and say, do you really want to do this? And if they notice that that is going to contribute to the growth of that company that you work for, they are going to let you have that training. You don't have to lobby your way to get it. So that's what really kind of sparked that interest. And I started, through the certifications, started looking at schools that offer some of the things that I wanted to do. And why I decided to go into business intelligence is because with my banking experience, dealing with crowds, dealing with people, I started understanding quickly that data is power, right? For example, we know that every Friday before 4 p.m., we're going to have crowds storming into the banks because they want to get money for the weekend. And when it's month end, you're going to have crowds. So all these are data related. So the understanding of that data helps you prepare for things that you don't expect, right? So that's when data-driven decision came into my mind. I'm like, okay, we can actually use data to make decisions, and that's the whole journey, right? So when I was working in the oil and gas industry, at a point, I was called the make-buy champion. And what I was doing there was I was deciding for the organization, for the company, what to make in-house or what to buy, just source abroad. I was using data to do that. If it doesn't make sense to produce internally, why making it here? If you can buy it for cheap, for the same quality, why don't you just source for it and save the time of making it here, the risks of, having scraps and all that. So all these were data-driven kind of decision. And I started doing that, started creating reports, started creating appealing visualizations with data, and I started seeing the reaction. Okay, that's another thing to acceptance, right? Once people started accepting what I was doing and they were seeing value in what I was doing, I just knew there on that this is a marketable skill, and I just kept going from there.
All right, that is truly incredible. And I'm just curious now as to how you think that young Nigerians back home who have the same passion or near level of passion can go this route as well. How can they also how can they move from that? Sometimes you apply, just like you applied. It wasn't banking and finance you wanted, but that was what you had to study. But somehow you were able to trace, your way back to your first love, which is tech and engineering and all of that. So what is your charge to young Nigerians who are perhaps stuck in a course they are disinterested in, or who are even yet to start out, but desire to make this kind of leaps?
The first thing I'm going to tell the younger me, if I see one today, is first, believe in yourself, right? Even though you find yourself in a place where the opportunities are not there, do not let go your dream. Just assuming I refused. I allowed my situation then to determine if I was going to do tech or not. Like, Me going to the computer village, that's sheer determination, right? So what I'll tell the younger person out there is, do not give up on your dream. Look for whatever is available that matches what you're looking for and leverage it. Take advantage of what you have available, right? So one of the things too that I did not highlight in my bio Abosede is the fact that I was like, back in the days, I used to like go to church a lot, like I used to be a church boy, and right there, I was able to interact, fellowshipping with other people, right, in church and asking questions too, right? Seeing opportunities. So they should leverage every opportunity that they have. There's nobody that is an island that you can't just be out there without anything, like completely zero. So do not give up on the dream. Leverage what you have available around you. Make use, utilize whatever is available to learn what or to try to key into your industry of choice. And then one thing that is very, very important, do not neglect the importance of education.
Yeah, and for you personally, how are you giving back in Nigeria, and how do you think that Nigerians in the diaspora who are in your space can give back to fatherland?
So there's something very interesting that happened to me when I came, right? So, I mean, of course, when I came, I joined the church because I played musical instruments. So in one of the African church, Nigerian churches, there's a guy that's, is perceived as the rich guy in the church, big boy, doing very well. So, and when I inquired about him, I found out that he was doing tech, right, at that time. So I went to him and I said, man, this is my interest. I was just new, like brand new in the state. And this man just told me straight up that, look, you can't do what I'm doing. And I'm like, just at least give me the opportunity to tell me what you are actually doing. Let me see if I can do it or not. But he never told me that. So I found out that most people don't want to really relinquish whatever they have. They see it as an opportunity. They want to just monopolize it. So for me, I made up my mind then on that once I'm able to break into the space, I am not going to be like him. I'm going to be different, and I did that. So the moment I got into tech, I became a Microsoft certified trainer. That is an opportunity that gives me the ability to train on the Microsoft platform, data-related platform, and also help people get certified as, data analysts. So when I started doing that, the first thing I did was going back to the local Nigerian churches here, and I offered trainings for free. Absolutely, I did that. And also back in Africa, I set up boot camps. In Nigeria, I've run 2 boot camps, together now. One of them was like absolutely free. I make sure that all the people that are close to me that are also eager to get into tech or that have the data kind of mindset that want to go into the data side of tech, I make sure that they get involved in those trainings all for free. So I have been doing a lot of sensitization. Last year, 2 years ago in 2024, we did train FAN, Federal Airport Authority in Nigeria, right? We did train their auditors on IT, artificial intelligence and IT audit.
That is actually truly inspiring. But on a final note, what do you miss most about your time in Nigeria?
Ooh, well, the first thing is always going to be the same, I believe, for a lot of Nigerians, the food, right? You don't get that kind of quality, buka kind of food you get on the streets of Nigeria, Lagos especially, I miss that a lot. Even when you get them here, the quality is not as, good as what you get here, but we do try to make it work somehow. So I miss the food pretty much. Interestingly, I also miss the chaos, I miss the chaos. Yeah, I miss the chaos. That's really rare, right? Like in Lagos, right? When, the electricity, like NEPA, no power, you have to turn on generator, the noise at night, everybody's trying to turn on their generators, and, it's kind of really interesting. And sometimes I think about it and I just smile because I'm living in a place where that's not the case, right? So the chaotic lifestyle of Lagos, the hustling, jumping into the bus, jumping into Okadas, parking your car if you have one, just because of traffic, and jumping on the bike just because you want to catch up the appointment. I kind of miss that, interestingly. But yeah, that's yeah, that's kind of weird, but yeah.
But talking about electricity, there's some, at least some changes are in place. You hear about bands A, B, and C, and perhaps if you're in band A, you could be fortunate enough to enjoy up to maybe 18 or 20 hours of power. But hey, well, the fact that I talked about the chaos, I need you to come to Lagos and let us experience that chaos together, really. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Joseph Abuo, US-based IT professional, data and business intelligence consultant, technology educator. Thank you very much for your time on Diaspora Connect.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
As we wrap up the show today, one key point to take away from the conversation is to start from and with whatever you have. Whatever field you found yourself, try and make the most of it. And it might just open the way for that bigger platform that you earnestly desire. That's the show for today. Thank you very much for being a part of it. I am Abosede Adeniyi Aderemi. I'll see you again. Bye for now.